Welcome back, everybody, to the show. I hope you're doing well. The producers got on the road this morning and very quickly realized they might as well have just been driving on an ice skating rink, so they turned around and won't be coming in today. What that means, I'll be doing the whole show here in the car. Hopefully that's all right with you. A lot to talk about. Apologies, as always, given the situation here, if the audio and video isn't up to our normal standard. But let's start with this. One of the wildest deep dives into Trump's health we've seen before, that included a particularly insane interview with Trump himself, where he brings in Levitt to the room, two doctors to stand there and be like, he's in perfect health, but at one point he snaps at one of the doctors over him getting whatever scan he got. The story keeps changing on that. And then they talk to different members of Trump's administration who all were giving these bizarre answers about the state of Trump's health. So here is the cover of this New York Magazine deep dive. The title is "The Superhuman President, a good faith attempt to ascertain the truth about Donald Trump's health." And that superhuman president was, I think, what Stephen Miller in the article said. This should be titled "A Superhuman President," as he was hyping up Trump. But let's get to the most viral quote from the exchange between the author and Trump in the Oval Office. It writes, "Fred Trump, Trump's dad, died in 1999 at age 93. He had, Trump said, a heart that couldn't be stopped with almost no health conditions to speak of throughout his long life. He had one problem," Trump said. "At a certain age, about 86 or 87, he started getting, what do they call it?" He pointed to his forehead and looked to his press secretary for the word that escaped him. "Alzheimer's," Levitt said. "Like an Alzheimer's thing," Trump said. "Well, I don't have it." "Is it something you think about?" the author asked. "No, I don't think about it at all. You know why? Because whatever it is, my attitude is whatever." So already there's going to be so many other weird exchanges in this. Stick around. As you do, please do click the subscribe button if you appreciate this show, if you appreciate that we're trying to still do this show despite the storm and the crazy roads and all the studio complications. But already it's insane. You have Trump talking about his dad, and as he's talking about Alzheimer's, he forgets the word Alzheimer's and just points to his head. "My dad had what's that thing called again?" And Levitt says, "Alzheimer's?" And he's like, yeah. But then, in explaining why he's not concerned about it for himself, despite the different mental, I can't diagnose what it is, but different mental issues Trump seems to be experiencing, he says, quote, "No, I don't think about it at all. You know why? Because whatever it is, my attitude is whatever." This is the president. Whatever it is, my attitude is whatever. Yikes. Another notable part of the Daily Beast reporting on this, but from that same interview, quote, "It was the worst effing thing I ever did," Trump said aggressively to one of the doctors that he had brought in the room. So again, get the mental picture in your head. Trump's in the Oval Office. Since we don't have video or audio of this, I have to kind of depict the image for you. In the Oval Office, two doctors standing there. They reportedly had a big pile of papers with talking points written on it. And so he's trying to, with the author of this piece, let me get the name real quick, Ben Terrace. They're trying to put all the concerns to rest about Trump by having doctors, Levitt there to support. Trump's going to explain it. And already we're off to a terrible start. Then he snaps at the doctor next to him when he gets asked about the MRI that Trump said that he had. And that's when he says, "It was the worst effing thing I ever did, and I blame them." Trump was pointing at the physician, Dr. Sean Barbella, and Dr. James Jones, the president's former medical advisor. "Can you explain why you asked me that?" Trump added, shaking his head. "Stupidest thing I've ever done." So then Jones explained that he suggests Trump undergo another medical scan while the president was scheduled to attend his second of what is meant to be a once-a-year physical at Walter Reed. While he was there, I asked if we could complete some additional physical things that we're planning on doing. And the point is, these doctors, which really makes me concerned about really any president, that apparently you can just bring in doctors and have them say whatever the heck you want, because some of these statements are obviously not true. Like Trump says the doctors repeat that he has the best health ever. At one point, I think I have this quote at some portion of the video, you have Trump asking one of the doctors who supposedly has examined him if he's in better physical health than Obama, and the doctor says absolutely. One other notable part, back to the New York Magazine piece. For all his raging against those who question his invincibility, Trump has acknowledged that he will in fact cease to exist one day. At Mar-a-Lago last year, with televisions tuned to former President Jimmy Carter's body lying in state at the U.S. Capitol, Trump surprised people in the room when he said, within 10 years, that will be me. In a not morbid way, he was, according to White House officials, thinking more about what he will be remembered for. Even the crazy ballroom that's being built on the site of the demolished East Wing, this official said, is about leaving a legacy here. He doesn't think of legacy in terms of policies enacted. It's buildings he can leave behind and prizes he can win. So once again, as a big icicle just dropped onto my car. Once again, it cites the strong-arming he did of Maria Corina Machado to get her Nobel Peace Prize. You think about how shallow, but then how severe the consequences can be based on the shallow ideology and priorities of Trump. That instead of thinking about, can my legacy be that I improved Americans' lives, that I made a big difference, that I enacted this policy or that policy, it's like a child's understanding of my legacy will be a big building, and I'll go home with a prize. And if I don't get the prize, I'm going to invade more countries, which was his threat. He's having more fun building this ballroom than I can possibly tell you, said Eric Trump. Now we go on to a different part of this, talking about that cabinet meeting, one of the many that he had where he was falling asleep. And this is where it does not feel like the United States of America or the American government whenever you hear the Trump administration officials' willingness to do North Korean state TV type propaganda for Trump. And we'll get to it. Let me actually, let's read about this cabinet meeting, but then you'll hear the explanation from Will Scarf. So on December 2nd, Trump called a cabinet meeting at the White House, live stream event. You have it going on a really long time, and Trump's eyelids grew heavier and heavier until finally he appeared to nod off multiple times. Shortly after the meeting ended, Leavitt beckoned me into her West Wing office for an interview with Will Scarf, the White House staff secretary. He promptly told me I hadn't seen what I thought I'd just seen. So we all watch, I mean, I played those clips before, we could maybe put it on screen, the editors can do this. Trump falling asleep, nodding off, this has happened a bunch of events now. Ironic, given that he was calling Biden Sleepy Joe Biden, and now he's dozing off. And then after that happens, right after it was witnessed in person by this journalist, one of the Trump administration staffers tries to convince him that's not actually what he just saw. And instead, this is what really we witnessed. He's always awake, always alert, always knows what's going on, said Scarf, whose job requires him to be in almost constant contact with the president. His work pace is remarkable. My dad is a few years older than he is. My dad couldn't do the job that the president does. I don't think I could do the job the president does. It's not dozing. Sometimes if he's thinking about something, and I made that mistake at first too, he adopts a pose. He leans back or leans forward a little bit, and he either closes his eyes or looks down because he often takes notes in his lap. So we are supposed to believe that despite it being obvious, like, okay, maybe you don't think it's a big deal, fine, but it being obvious that something he wasn't doing just a few years ago, that he's doing now, falling asleep uncontrollably in the middle of important meetings, that isn't actually what we're seeing, and instead, he has a very powerful listening pose that looks like this. I'm just listening intensely. Or that Trump, who I've never seen take notes in his entire life, is actually under the table and you can't notice it, just looking down really low, and he's writing very diligent notes. I don't buy it. Leavitt also chimed in saying he's actively listening. His energy levels are so good that even elite members of the military can't keep up with his work schedule. So here would be my advice to the Trump administration. I get that you're not going to admit that he's aging and that's impacting him. We saw age impacting Biden. You all are trying to pretend like Trump is a superhuman who can't be impacted by age or his poor diet or any health issues. And anytime there's reason to believe that there's an underlying health problem that they're not exactly being transparent about because of different tests that they're doing, and then separately the fact that Trump is apparently getting a cognitive test like every 2 weeks, and he keeps reminding us of that. which isn't normal unless maybe there's a reason that you want to keep checking the cognitive. I get that you're not going to admit that. But my advice to you would be, don't go so over the top that no one's going to buy it. Because let me read you more quotes. The guy is too healthy, Marco Rubio said. He's too active. Unparalleled memory and attention to detail. Captain Sean Barbella, Trump's lead doctor, was asked about the bruising on Trump's hands seen most recently at Trump's Board of Peace signing. Terrace described Trump's right hand, this is the author, as warm and soft during our handshake. Looked like rhino hide on the back, dry and gray, the notorious bruise spread out like an ink blot test. But Trump's doctor says that he's witnessed Trump's frequent handshakes, despite it also being on Trump's left hand, and that people say, "What beautiful skin you have." I guess according to the doctor, Trump held up his non-shaking hand. Look, this one's perfect. He said, oh no, Trump says, people say, "What beautiful skin you have." So again, you go this overboard, no one's going to believe it. No one's telling him, look what beautiful skin you have. Put, again, editors, if you would, some shots of Trump's skin. I don't think anyone says that. The White House said the bruise that appeared on his left hand that couldn't be from handshaking was caused by him hitting it against a table corner. Trump also blamed women's fingernails and rings for the cuts on his right hand, saying that he got a nasty slice from a botched high five with Pam Bondi. Then you have Stephen Miller. This is from a Mediaite piece titled 5 Most Over-the-Top Boasts About Trump's Health. It's just oh so very cringy. You have Stephen Miller saying that the headline of the story should be "The Superhuman President." He can work harder and he has better memory and he has more stamina and has more energy than a normal mortal, said Stephen Miller. Well, what would you know, Stephen? You're not mortal. Or you're not a human? It sounded like I was complimenting him. I wasn't trying to. Then this part, again, if these doctors are trying to have any credibility, they should stop saying stuff like this. According to Colonel James Jones, a physician's assistant in the White House who also worked with the 44th president, Obama, was asked who is healthier, Obama or President Trump. Trump stared across the desk, making eye contact with Jones. Jones didn't hesitate. President Trump. Yeah. We'll do the split screen on screen there as well. Yeah, right. And then Ronnie Jackson said one time he saw Trump on a treadmill whenever he was doing some tests. And Ronnie Jackson is this very partisan Republican, but was also a White House doctor. And he said that he looked like an athlete, and that despite us all seeing Trump's ankles recently, they don't look great, that what he saw with shorts and a t-shirt was something majestic, superhuman. Now, interestingly, there's some other reporting from less, what's the word? Biased doctors. A doctor, these reports, reveals the clue Trump let slip about his health. And listen to this. Again, this is just speculation, but Dr. Bruce Davidson told the Daily Beast podcast that he believes an overlooked detail from Trump's January Wall Street Journal interview about his health proves he's hiding a previous stroke. I read the report that he was taking 325 milligrams of aspirin, and that is only recommended for people who've had a stroke to prevent a second stroke from partially blocked artery. From a partially blocked artery. When I read that, I said, well, he's had a stroke and he's taking the right medication. And that obviously has not been disclosed. So the whole point here is, number one, kind of like, I'm trying to think of the most egregious, like, for example, when Caroline Leavitt came out, we know they're willing to lie. That's obvious for Trump. Okay. And to some degree, any White House officials will bend the truth in favor of their boss. But whenever Trump said Iceland over and over when he meant Greenland, and then Leavitt came out, and it's on video in front of the world, we all witness it. And it's like, okay, so he messed it up over and over. He had a brain glitch. And she goes, no, he didn't. He never said that. He didn't get anything mixed up. You're the one getting it mixed up. He just said a piece of ice. And you're like, well, at one point he said a piece of ice. At a different point, he just mixed up Iceland and Greenland over and over. 4 times he said Iceland instead of Greenland. And then she's trying to say, well, no, he was actually saying that, because Greenland's icy, so he calls it Iceland, even though there's a place called Iceland. And then you go, oh, so and I've heard a cult expert explain this, but sometimes regimes, cults, tell a lie not because they even think their cultists will believe the lie, but because stating that you believe the lie is a virtue signal within the cult. It is a indication of loyalty to the leader. If you're willing to state something that you know everyone knows and you know is not true. And so once you get to that level of, oh my gosh, they'll stand there, Trump's sitting there looking terrible, his hand looks terrible, his ankles look terrible, his face looks terrible, he's sagging all over the place, and say, no, he's in better physical shape than Obama, he's a superhuman, he didn't fall asleep, he was just focusing really intently, he never mixes up words, when you think he did, he actually was just meaning that there's similarities between the term of ice and the place of Greenland, that actually could be merged to mean Iceland, and also whenever he says Nikki Haley, whenever he means Nancy Pelosi, is because Nikki Haley and Nancy Pelosi are a part of the same corrupt system, and he's really just making a point that you can't follow. That's not even to convince people that what they're saying is true, but to test loyalty and then kind of make us all feel like we're going crazy. And so if we're in a world where that's the people surrounding Trump and that's what they're telling us, it's scary because you want to believe there's some level of loyalty to the truth, even if sometimes dishonest and political and partisan, that there's some basic tiny obligation to the truth from the most powerful people in our country, and there's not, and we know that now. Obviously, we've known it for a while.